All right, let's talk about the one thing every business obsesses over: growth. Today, we're diving into a really powerful shift in thinking, a shift that separates the companies that scale smoothly from the ones that just get bigger, messier, and more chaotic. And it all boils down to one core idea. Now that's a statement, right? It kind of flips the script on the conventional wisdom that scaling is all about hiring a bigger team. It suggests that real, sustainable growth actually comes from building better systems. So what does that actually look like in the real world? First up, we need to unpack this myth that so many companies are built on. You know the one. It's the idea that whenever things get hard, the only solution is to throw more people at the problem. Does that sound familiar? I bet it does. Customer support tickets are piling up, sales goals are being missed, deadlines are getting tight, and what's the first, almost gut-level reaction from leadership? We need to hire someone. It feels like you're making progress, but a lot of the time, it's actually a trap. And this is where the real pain starts. See, relying on that myth has some pretty serious consequences, because it turns out it's not actually the growth that breaks a company. It's what that growth exposes. Think of your company like a building for a second. If the foundation has some hidden cracks, adding more floors, more people, more revenue, isn't going to make it any stronger. It's just going to put more pressure on those cracks until the whole thing starts to wobble. Growth is just the force that reveals the flaws that were already there, hiding under the surface. And this leads to something we call the hiring treadmill. It's this crazy, vicious cycle. You hire a person to patch a hole in a broken process, but that new person adds more communication lines, more meetings, more complexity, which, you guessed it, creates new holes. So you have to hire someone else to patch those. You feel like you're running faster and faster, but you're not actually getting anywhere. The company just gets bigger and slower. So if that old model is broken, what's the alternative? Well, it takes a really fundamental shift in how you think about growth, moving from a people-first scaling model to a system-first one.
And when you put these two models side by side, the difference is, well, it's stark. Scaling with people is linear. 10 people can do about 10 times the work of one person. Sure, but people need to be managed, they get tired, and eventually you just hit a hard ceiling on what they can do. System scaling is totally different. A good system doesn't just add capacity, it multiplies it. It makes everything around it more efficient. And that's how you get that incredible, compounding, exponential growth curve.
The real key to this new model is a concept called AI employees. And let's be super clear here, we're not just talking about another software tool. Think of these as autonomous agents that have the authority, the agency, to actually execute tasks all on their own. They're designed to take over entire processes, things like onboarding a new client or processing data, basically removing that manual friction so your team can focus on the big picture stuff.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually build a company this way? It starts with a framework we call the system-first stack. This is basically the blueprint for putting systems right at the heart of your business.
Now you have to read this stack from the bottom up. That's the most important part. You don't start with people, you start with the AI core. That's your foundation of autonomous systems. Then on top of that, you build standardized automated processes. And only then, at the very top, do you add your people, a lean, super effective team that is supported and amplified by the two powerful layers sitting right underneath them. So in a practical sense, what do these AI employees do for you? Well, 4 key things. First, they take over all that repetitive admin work that just burns people out. Second, they make sure every process runs the exact same way every single time, which gives you incredible consistency. This allows you to run with a much leaner, higher impact team. And maybe most importantly, they don't replace human thinking, they elevate it. They handle all the noise so your team can focus on what humans do best: judgment, creativity, and strategy. So what does all this mean for you and your business? It means there's a clear path to get off that frustrating hiring treadmill and actually start scaling cleanly. Let's look at the results you can expect and the steps to get there. Ultimately, this whole approach boils down to 2 game-changing benefits. First, your team gets leaner, more engaged, and way more effective because they're not drowning in manual busywork. And second, your growth becomes predictable. It's consistent. Why? Because it's built on reliable systems, not on the unpredictable capacity of individual people. And the good news is, getting started follows a pretty straightforward 5-step path. First, you take a hard look at your operations and figure out where the real friction is. Next, you pinpoint the gaps in your systems that are causing all that pain. From there, you bring in targeted AI employees to plug those gaps and start taking the manual work off your team's plate. The end result? You can finally scale your business cleanly and efficiently. So we'll leave you with this one last question to really think about. When you look at your own company, at your own plans for the future. What's your foundation really built on? Are you trying to scale with more headcount, or are you scaling with systems? Because honestly, the answer to that question is going to define your future.